Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's been a minute, sadly, but today I'm going to show you how to make a DIY arboreal reptile tub terrarium. So to make this tub, it's actually very simple. The first thing you'll need is obviously the tub because you need somewhere to put your reptile, so you'll need a tub. That's up to you. You can choose whatever kind you want, but I would suggest one with latches like this one here. So as you can see, this one has a latch and it comes in handy because when you end up soldering through the plastic here and you end up making your little opening door, it works very well to have the latch to be able to open and close it. The bottom one isn't needed as much, so usually I end up zip tying the sides, but I'll get to that later. So getting back to some of the supplies you're going to need is obviously a soldering iron, because you need that to be able to cut through the plastic, because if you use scissors it will actually usually crack the plastic, as well as using a knife. You can use a knife and heat it up, but it will actually take a lot longer to do it. Versus a soldering iron, it stays hot and you're able to cut through the plastic decently fast. It still takes some time, but it's a lot easier. Not to mention, a knife is also, more dangerous than a soldering iron. Even though the soldering iron is hot, a knife you can both, it would be heated, so it would be hot, and you could end up cutting yourself. So not such a good idea. Also, be very careful when you use a soldering iron. So the next thing you're going to need is zip ties as well as craft mesh. The zip ties are to be able to hold the craft mesh in place in the tub so that your tub has ventilation. So I'm just going to explain how I made mine. I'm not actually going to make another one just because I have no use for one at the moment. I'm not getting any new reptiles, but I'm going to explain step by step how I actually made the one that I have. The first thing that I did with my tub is I laid it flat, like so, to make it easier to take the soldering iron and cut down the bottom half. So I did about, 2/3 of the way down, so that there's only 1/3 left for the bottom half. This way, if you want to put plants or any decorations, it's not going to end up getting in the way of the door when you end up deciding to open and close it. So the next part that I actually did when it came to making this tub is I cut the hole in the top. Now this took a long time because this plastic is very thick, which is a good thing. At least I find is better to have thick plastic than thin plastic that could easily crack over time, especially with the heat of the soldering iron. So I ended up cutting the hole through here. As you can see, I don't know if you can still tell or not, but there is markings. I ended up using a ruler and measured it out to make sure that it was actually square. So the next thing I did was I cut the craft mesh to fit in this hole that I ended up cutting out here. As you can see, there's still the lines from me measuring it. So I cut the craft mesh out and I pierced the holes through with the soldering iron to make sure that it lines up properly, and I ended up actually zip tying in place one of the parts of the craft mesh, just so that way when I end up going to do the rest, it all lines up and there's not any wonkiness or bumps in the craft mesh that it doesn't end up actually lining up. And then one part is, has a spot that's open and your reptile could actually escape from. So that's what I did next. Is I went through and did all the holes. I had to do the holes both in the hard plastic through the craft mesh on the one side and then just through the craft mesh on the other. I don't know if you can see that very well, but that's how I did that. Is there's one hole here that goes through the plastic of the tub and the craft mesh, and then there's just a hole through the craft mesh there, and then it's zip tied around. So, and after this part, I decided that I would move on to the front, this part here. So this part is actually a little bit harder. So the main thing that you have to do is make sure that you do not tie the zip ties up all the way when you first do it. if you do that, your tub's not going to be able to open and close because the zip ties will be way too tight. So when you end up adding the zip ties to this part here, which you pierce a hole on either side, one in the top part and one in the bottom part, you end up putting it through, and you don't tighten it all the way. You tighten it to a certain point where you can still, you know, hold the tub here and open and close it. Just to make sure that these aren't going to be too tight that you can't open and close the tub, and then you end up cracking the plastic and you end up ruining the tub, and you'd have to get another lid and restart it all over. So the next part that I did is just a little bit of added extra pieces that you don't actually have to do, but I did myself, is I went on the side here and I just pierced an extra little hole through both sides of the plastic tub, just on the ridge, not actually through the tub itself. There's just a little lip here. I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's a lip right here. And I pierced a hole through that, and I added an extra zip tie just to hold the bottom piece on so it's not going to end up flopping around, along with the, this is a little bit hard here, along with this little latch here. It just holds it in place so that this bottom part isn't moving around at all, and it just stays there. And finally, the last thing I did was add extra ventilation on the front. This is optional. You don't have to do it. I personally just did it myself just to add extra ventilation in case it gets too humid, and that way the water can evaporate from it from the tub a lot faster. Depending on the size of, you know, ventilation and craft mesh you want would be depending on the size of hole you want on the top, and add the craft mesh there. It's all, you know, you can do it different sizes. You can do multiple little small ones. You can do one big one like I did. You can do a smaller one. It's all up to you. I also added some extra holes on the side for more ventilation, as well as I can hook things through, as I did here, one of the plants. I can hook things through so that I can add plants and different decorations through the tub itself, so that way I don't have to worry about suction cups or anything like that. So there you have it. Very simple. You can do it in any size that you want, small, you know, or even large. I've done this before with a very, very large plastic tub, and I added even extra holes in the back to be able to hook up my wonderful misting system that I had showed in a previous video. So there was 2 holes in the back here that I had did to be able to add the little nozzles for the misting system. So these tubs are wonderful. They're cheap, customizable in any way that you want, and they're, you know, easy to clean, easy to sanitize. They're a lot cheaper than one of the glass tanks that you would, you know, buy at the store. This cost maybe about 20 bucks in total versus, you know, 150. So it's just personal preference, whatever you prefer. If I had known about this beforehand, I probably would have had just plastic tubs because it's easy to clean and, you know, cheap. So hopefully this video helps you guys out and you're able to make your own plastic tub, you know, terrariums, and let me know in the comment section below what you think of this video. I'm sorry I didn't actually make one, but hopefully I gave enough, you know, explanation on how to make it for you guys to be able to do it yourselves at home. Make sure to like and subscribe for more videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys all next time.